Good morning. So let's dig into the papers.
All right, the first headline comes from Punch. Discontinue plans for new national ID. HURIWA tells the president.
Okay, so on the 5th of April 2024, the National Identity Management Commission announced a collaboration with the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System to launch a new national identity card, which would have multiple functionalities, including social and financial services. So, excuse me. So ever since then, there has been there have been calls in certain quarters questioning the announcement of a new national identity card, and questions have arisen as to what happened to the previous national identity cards issued. And these are valid questions. So over the weekend, we had the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria also advising the president to discontinue the plans for a new national ID card. And part of their reasons for their position was the fact that millions of Nigerians remain unbanked and unbankable, and that there was a general wave of poverty sweeping the land, and that this wasn't the best, in their opinion, in summary, this wasn't the best time to be doing that, and that the government should look at the old card that was announced. Now, they do have a point, and this is what some of us are saying. You announced a previous system, a previous process. There was seemingly nothing wrong with that process, apart from the fact that the government was unable to supply Nigerians who had completed the registration process and provided the biometric information with the cards. Now, we must recall that when the previous process or procedure was announced, we were told that that card would also serve as a debit or credit card. Now you've announced a new system. You haven't told us what happens to all the people who registered under the previous system and who got those paper slips in lieu of the card. And for those who managed to get the card, kudos to them. Are they required to then get this new card? So there's still a lot of unanswered questions. And the truth of the matter remains this: whatever method is used, the system has to be trusted. We have to be able to trust that that system is fraud proof, that people who are not entitled to that card do not get their hands on it. So, questions, 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 very few answers still yet. And we're hoping that the current administration, in the shortest time possible, will address these issues and also address the compatibility of the old card vis-a-vis this proposed new card. Remember that no timeline has still been proposed for the rollout or commencement of this new exercise. And it's not advisable to always leave some sort of doubt or lacuna as to when government programs will start or how they'll be implemented, because it then adds to the deficit of trust that exists currently between the government and the people. So this is a clarion call to the authorities. Resolve this matter, address all the gray areas, and let Nigerians know what they need to do to get the new card.
All right, I understand AB has a little to chip in before we get into the Nation newspaper that's in front of you, but let's hear what your thoughts are relating to Yurua's cry to the government to stop this oncoming.
Well,
What? Yes.
just a tiny bit on the other story. Even till now, I drive past the NIMC office each day, and there are hundreds of people standing outside. So the people made the point that, are you about to subject Nigerians to another round of standing outdoors in the rain and sun with very little hope of getting the thing? Whatever we do and whenever we choose to do it, the system and process must be better organized, managed, and streamlined. When we did the first card, in the comfort of my home, I was able to fill in my data, set a timed appointment, get there. I was received and I was processed, and I got that fabulous piece of paper. It took me many years later to go to these independent places, and I've now got the famous card, which, according to this report, may now be moribund or defunct. That's not good enough. We must make a better process. Now, on to the story from the Nation about heavy security presence. There was news last week about a group of people who invaded the secretariat in Ibadan, saying they were Yoruba nation secessionists. And the security officials caught some stories say some were actually killed. I saw a video of some people, and at the time I saw it, I didn't know, but the stories now filtered out. It's interesting. The governor of Osun State has tightened security at the secretariat and other strategic government buildings to make sure that we don't have a repeat by copycat people. And he has said called for a rededication to the ideals of a united Nigeria with ongoing constitutional amendments to ensure a truly federal system. That and the other part where he said he urged agitators to join the crusade for the reform of the federal system to ensure adjustments that give the states more autonomy and responsibility. And I should add, and resources, because it's interesting. First, the South succeeded with Isaac Boro. Then the Southeast chose, elected to secede. Now we're hearing the Southwest, of course, not the whole area, individuals within these areas, of course, let's not say the whole area. Individuals within areas chose to secede. It's interesting that you're talking about fact patterns. At a point, you have to ask, what is it about the current makeup that seems to make certain individuals and groups feel that leaving this organization is the organization called Nigeria, the country, is their chosen path? One is not justifying or condemning it. I'm curious. And if that kind of root cause analysis can be applied, perhaps indeed there will be ways to improve the whole so that people feel more of a reason and a stakeholding to become not just a part of it, but a contributing, functional, and wholly embedded part of it. It's just very interesting to me that now we have different senses of people in the former southern region that was amalgamated with the northern region to make what is today Nigeria seem to have this on again, off again relationship with the whole. And I think opportunities exist even amidst this security threat to re-examine what it is that Nigeria actually is, what it stands for, and where its potentials can be fully realized for everybody within the country. And I hope we'll talk about that more in another story that I'm going to be handling on agriculture.
So, AB, before I let the paper rest, let's get into it. At 63, why would we feel as a nation that it is always secession that is the best path out? Because one has looked at countries, even when you break out, there comes again another issue inside that area where you break out of having minorities and issues of marginalization.
It would appear the core thing is a perception of injustices, assorted injustices, and people feel, rightly or wrongly, that they would better take their fate in their own hands. In the United States, at a point, some people chose to divide the country. So we're not unique. It's the human status where you want an improved life, but with proper, can I call it social engineering, people can feel that that better life can be found within rather than outside the boundaries of a given nation state, So I think these are, background noises, and we should pay attention to them. If you're driving a car and you start hearing a certain squeaking or something, you tend to slow down, park, and investigate. Let's investigate genuinely what some of the root causes of these agitations are and address them in a practical and productive manner. Nigeria can be heaven on earth. It certainly doesn't feel like it right now.
And you don't see that this secession activities raising just barely 48 hours in Oyo, and then there is the need to bring security presence in Osun. It can be linked to the return or probably the release of a certain personality who has been linked with this activity, agitation in the southwest of Nigeria.
Well, you can have a causative thing. It could have, but I don't know that this happened just as soon as the person was released. There were uniforms sewn, there were boots got, arguably there was arms and ammunition. So if this happened that was a very fast planning process. I think there's more to it than just that release alone. That's, because it took some logistics to make the videos I saw did not seem ad hoc. They seemed, to the extent that they had a plan in mind. May have been misguided in the context, but they had a plan in mind.
All right, let's look at some of the messages coming through. JP says, name C and Y elephants are synonymous in my opinion. You want an enhanced identity program, yet you haven't been able to have records updated. It's absolutely ridiculous. Samuel says, I don't really think federal government issuing a new card is our problem now. Let them look at what Nigeria needs. Francis from Ojo says, Nigerian government so tiring, always coming up with a new strategy and not improving on the previous. I work in a finance institution and the NIN is easily gotten by individuals from these neighboring countries. Ajayi says the current administration should please sit down and think through policies before embarking on them. The outrageous electricity tariff increase, the coastal roads, and this new ID card scheme are just proof of gross incompetence. The WhatsApp number to send your messages to 0809 440 Next headline. Chibok girls. US renews commitment to Nigeria's anti-terrorism efforts.
Yes, so the American government has restated its commitment to helping Nigeria fight terrorism and the activities of criminal and violent non-state actors. Now, it's been over a decade since the Chibok girls were abducted from their school, and various accounts put the number of students still unaccounted for somewhere between 82 to 96 girls, which is really sad and tragic because their families still do not have the required closure to move on from that sad and regrettable incident. So here we are, the American government has restated its commitment, and we must say that the American government has truly been committed because when we remember the 37 Tucano aerial platforms that were given to the government via the last administration and all the experts they have sent to train Nigerian Special Forces units and also logistics aid, of a truth, America has tried. Now they're committed to ensuring that Nigeria remains peaceful and that perpetrators of these dastardly terrorist activities are brought to book. Now, it's no gainsaying that Nigeria is the largest country in the sub-region, that is West Africa, and is one of the most important countries on the African continent. Now, if for any reason Nigeria were to go the way of Somalia, it would be bad news not only for Nigerians, it will be bad news for the sub-region and for the continent in total. So here is a foreign partner committed to ensuring that we don't go down that route. Now, how can the Nigerian government justify this support? The Nigerian government can justify this support by going after identified members and sponsors of terrorist activities. We recall that during the last administration, one of the Middle Eastern countries, I think the UAE, identified financiers of terrorist activities in the northwest and the northeast corridors of Nigeria. That list was made public. That list was also made available to the previous administration. What came out of that exercise? Nigerians are still at a loss. We do recall that the immediate past Attorney General of the Federation did start a trial of certain individuals that were alleged to be financing terrorist activities in Nigeria. However, those court trials are held under secrecy. We are not availed with the updates as they come out from those courts, and we do not know, we cannot state with any certainty whether anyone has been convicted, whether anyone has been discharged or acquitted. It's simply all quiet on that front. So here is a clarion call. When a country wants to help you, yes, it will be argued that the country has its own interest to serve, but it pays them to have Nigeria safe. And we need as many friends like America as we can possibly get. Am I saying we should stick only to America as a foreign friend? No. get as many friends as possible, maintain your sovereignty, maintain your independence, but in the multitude of counsel, in a multitude of good people, there's always wisdom and counsel to receive. So the Nigerian government should justify the support it has been receiving and continues to receive from countries like America.
It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. More on the other side.
Now you made Mr. C's mic nice, crisp, and bright, and then you guys' mics are tough to hear. What's going on?
So, Abi,
I
you
mean, I
can't hear
can hear,
me?
I can hear Mr. C very nicely, but funny enough, you guys are now, except at the last part when Zibby spoke, her voice now popped up. I really don't know whether it's the directionality of the mic. I don't know. Mr. C is cool.
It's freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1. We have the analyst in. It's Mr. C and AB Bozimo this morning. WhatsApp number to send your thoughts across 0809 440 981.
AB, this next paper is for your attention as the Vanguard. It says oil theft. NAF, that's the Nigerian Air Force airstrikes destroys 7 illegal refinery sites in Rivers State. Speak to us about how they carried out this operation and if this can bring an end to this activity in that region.
Yes, the AVM Edward Gapquet, director of the NAF Public Relations, said that this was part of the success against economic saboteurs in the Niger Delta region. The strikes were carried out just over the weekend and significantly diminished the capability of oil thieves to burst and siphon crude oil. Now, they said that they did some surveillance. They discovered ships laden with stolen crude. They discovered facilities where people were trying or preparing or planning to process that crude. And they saw people who, on sighting them, scattered. Now, the way our Air Force goes about it, they tend to see these places and then, of course, rain in heavy munitions and all that and destroy by fire. Fine. The thing is that there is an environmental cost, both to cost because of those who burst the pipelines. Let's start with that. And also with this method of destruction. I dare say our military doesn't act in a silo. Are you telling me it's impossible for the Air Force to identify, pinpoint the location, and for ground, Navy, and other forces to come and neutralize the activities of the people without necessarily destroying the product? Because that product is Nigeria's crude. I don't know that you cannot, if I want to use what, rescue the crude and add it to Dangote's refinery. Maybe that's a far stretch, but there must be other ways, in my view, that you do maintain security and stop economic sabotage as well as protect the environment, because you don't want to have a situation where you did a fantastic operation and the patient died. The environment needs to be taken as one of the positive outcomes after an operation. So they did this at different sites. The report says that they were successful in all that, but I worry very much about the environmental burden that we're putting in those areas. Yes, let us surveil. Let us also infiltrate so that we can actually catch these people before they engage in these nefarious activities. And when we catch them, let them lead us to all the people behind this. And because honestly, from the few reports I'm seeing, when you see the people that are supposedly engaged in this oil theft, they do not look like sheikhs of any sort. They look like miserable, puny serfs who are serving higher powers. And that is what we need to go after. Listen, one length of those metallic pipes that they used to do things cannot be afforded by those poverty-stricken people I've seen paraded. Let's be very honest. So somebody's providing the finance to create those illegal, don't forget that these are illegal facilities, but somebody's providing the funding. Let's go after those providing the funding. Then I'll have a better sense that there is an objective. You can go after rats, but you are not getting the real bushmeat, if you will, in this nefarious activity. And this has got this short-sighted approach. While it may be satisfying and gives us reports on the day, good reports, but it's costing a lot in terms of environmental damage. I've heard that the moment a pipeline is punctured, there are technologies and software that can enable them discover it. Let's use that more. Those times we were hearing about 2,000, 4,000 positions of penetration in the pipeline. That cannot happen without some people looking the other way. They were doing a water project in Port Harcourt. If you see the disruption, if you see the huge piles of sand it takes to bury a pipe, you can't do that in secret, is all I'm saying. So well before they get to those points, there should be surveillance that prevents people from carrying huge metal pipes and creating metal vats with which to do this illegal activity. That is where I want to see the intelligence of the military, the Navy, the Army, and all that put to use. And let's preserve our environment while protecting our economy.
AB, just a quick one. These activities go on in communities, and if you talk, because you raised the issue of looking the other way, can we absorb communities of complicity in this act, and also factor in the pipeline surveillance that has been awarded to certainly indigenes of the Niger Delta? Is it seeming to have any positive impact, knowing that the oil production has also dwindled in the last couple of months?
So what I will tell you is that these things rarely go on in communities. The people go and create remote camps, which is also why I think the Air Force can bomb them without feeling that you are having collateral damage. The people go and create different camps. But when it talk about complicity, if one young wretch, no offense to wretches, goes, then suddenly comes back and is rich, you have to understand that the person is, and you know the person is not engaged in any other legitimate activity, then yes, members of the community must know that that person is involved in something. Now, what happens if and when they report? Let me tell you a fear I've heard expressed, and from some of those remote areas. The fear that has happened is that when you report, the people you report to have been also looking the other way to allow that work go on, and then they can now point you out as the snitch, and then your life is in danger. So there's a lot of reform that has to be done. A lot of people like to be posted, in terms of the security forces, choose to be posted to these places. In fact, allegedly, they pay to be posted there because that often turns their life around. These are allegations, but they can be investigated.
But then, because of the areas, one final one, because this oil issue is a major to our national life and our treasury. You see, yes, like you had alluded now, this pipelines are always far away. But then, there's not a refinery on the other side of a river. But every time you see diesel and petrol coming from on the other side being offloaded by the bank of a river, what does that say about where it's coming from when a refinery is not on the other side?
It says that the people authorized to provide fuel, diesel, and so on should do their work. Let me tell you, there is a huge energy starvation crisis in the Niger Delta. And it's the most ironic thing that in the Niger Delta, we pay the highest for fuel. That means that the NNPC and co have completely neglected the Niger Delta and chosen to extract the product and take it to anywhere but the place where it actually comes from. Let's look at that root cause, because you cannot provide something. Nature abhors a vacuum. Let me start again. Illegal oil work remains and is illegal. Nobody justifies it, but those who are in charge should do their work, and there'll be no vacuum for vagrants and vagabonds to fill.
All right, thank you, AB, for that. Let's look at some of the messages coming through. This one is from Emeka. Emeka says if Boko Haram was never eliminated up north, there's no need, hoping that airstrikes in oil-rich river states and the riverine areas will also achieve much. Joseph Menu, we love to see your messages. Please don't call. Thank you. This one says you can see how successive governments don't have plans for a better country, but it's how to milk the economy. Can NIMSI put out all the monies that have been given to them from the day of establishment till present? Because I don't understand how there's a continuous updating of features on the cars that have never been issued. Who did we offend in Nigeria? Veronica says, just destroying without environmental consequences. We've been crying out against oil spillage for years, and still the same government and their agencies are adding more damage to a fight that seems to not be ending. JP says the whole issue of oil theft isn't at community alone. The whole setup is complicit. Technology is not missing. Too many are just involved. We are not talking kegs here. Sad. Right. The next story comes from Vanguard. Nigerian maritime stakeholders and authorities have completed plans to study the Chinese waterways transport model with a view to perfecting Nigeria's waterways transportation system.
Okay, so I'm not even sure why this is a story, but on the show or even in the papers. So, Nigerian maritime stakeholders and authorities have concluded plans to possibly understudy the Chinese waterways transport model with a view to perfecting Nigeria's waterways transportation system. Now, what is clear is that we haven't optimized our water transportation systems in Nigeria. Now, it's for a number of reasons. One, funding. We do not have the required amount of funding to fully develop that sector. Two, you also have to factor in the fact that the people haven't been properly educated as to the benefits of water transport. Three, some Nigerians truly do not know how to swim, and if for any reason they found themselves in water, they would either be seasick or they might panic and possibly cause complications for people with them. So the challenge I have with this arrangement is they plan to study it, but if they do not have the buy-in of the administration, after studying it, they possibly will be restricted or hindered in their efforts to implement. Now, you cannot implement all these things without the buy-in of stakeholders, such as subnational governments that have waterways. So I would have expected that they would have spoken to some of the governors in the southeast, some of the governors in the south-south, and some of the governors in the southwest, where you'll find waterways. Sadly, there's no mention of that. What we are told is a nebulous statement, stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? What spectrum do they cover? So, yes, it is important that we see how serious countries have developed their waterways, and I want to believe that China cannot be the only country. Widens the net. There are other countries that have waterways that have used them properly. Let's get a sample and then pick and choose from, pick what we can learn from each of them and then modify to suit our local geographic realities. But again, this is Nigeria. I'm not holding my breath.
Maybe you want to put in something in just less than
Just
1
one
minute.
sentence.
Yes.
There is completely sufficient domestic understanding and knowledge of how to manage waterways. This sounds junket-like to me.
Well, it's on that note of a junket. We'll just go over to the junkets of the messages we've got right now. Chibuzo is waiting for us with a message, and he says, economic sabotage is bad. Why does the military enjoy bombing South? Illegal gold mining in the North can be bombed. The funds not, well, funds not do us all. That's what he said, Chibuzo. And then Don Kelvin sums up our message this morning on Freshly Pressed, saying, AB is correct. I had a conversation with a high-ranking officer, let's say allegedly now, in one of the security forces who said the same thing about paying huge sums to be posted to the Niger Delta. And once assigned to a pipeline protection duty, life is turned around for good.
All right. Well, that is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sending your messages through. And special thanks to our analysts as well, Mr. C and AB Bozimo, for joining us.
Agree.
Thank you. You may agree or disagree with me. Hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms. Have a wonderful week ahead.
And the AB is EBI, Bozimo, Bozimo.
That's it. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on the Smooth